Go, Steve.
So welcome everybody to the July meeting of Solidarity Lowell. I am your moderator for tonight, Steve Malagodi. I was conscripted into doing this moderation job tonight, and I've never done it before, so please be prepared for all kinds of errors and failures and fumbled snaps and all of those kind of things. We're going to get started. This is the July meeting of Solidarity Lowell. And you should see on your screen right now our agenda for tonight. For those of you who are on the phone and can't see it, right now we're doing the basic about Solidarity Lowell and brief introductions. At 5:40, we will have reports from our committees and allied organizational updates. At 6 o'clock, the wonderful Amada Gregory will be sharing with us some of the testimonials that she received and presented at the Lama Housing Forum. They were so good. We asked Amada to share a few of those with us tonight, so that'll happen around 6 o'clock. At 6:05, Marwa Saeed from the Massachusetts Coalition for the Homeless will be with us. At 6:20, Katie McCann from City Life Vida Urbana will also be with us. And 6:35, Carolyn Bays from Progressive Mass will be joining us. What everybody at the 6 o'clock to the end has in common is we're discussing housing issues this month here at Solidarity Lowell. The endemic crisis of lack of housing, and also the crisis that everybody is expecting with mass evictions from the because of the COVID restrictions and everybody's lack of income. So that's basically our agenda for tonight. Our guidelines for our virtual meetings. Please raise your hand if you want to speak. We have a stacker, the amazing Joe Boyle, I think. Yes, Joe's doing stacking for us tonight. So raise your hand either visually on screen or with the raise hand function in the participants box Slack. If you're going to walk away from your computer, if you need to get up and do something, please stop your video so we don't just see blank walls, and resume it when you come back. Please be conscious of everybody's different kinds of personalities. So if you're an aggressive person like me, make sure you are aware that maybe sometimes you need to step back. And if you're a shy person like I am not, please don't be afraid to step up when you have something to say, because everybody needs to be heard. And finally, please know that this meeting is being recorded. What is Solidarity Lowell? I'm glad you asked. Solidarity Lowell is a volunteer-based group of community members of Greater Lowell working toward social justice by defending the human rights, dignity, and equality of all persons against all forms of hate and discrimination. With all in-person events on hold, we can bring people together virtually and come up with ways to pursue progressive issues in this time of social distancing. We are a chapter of Progressive Massachusetts. If you're interested in learning more about Progressive Mass or joining one of their committees, please let us know after the meeting. The Solidarity Lowell Coordinating Committee is your team of fearless leaders, it says right here, fearless leaders, running the meetings, organizing events, disseminating relevant news, and sharing calls to action. So if you're on the coordinating committee, wave your hand or make yourself known in some fashion. All right, time for introductions. We would like to go around and have everybody introduce themselves with your name, where you're from, and your pronouns. This is going to be a little tricky because I don't see all the participants. So I'm going to do my best here not to miss anybody. So let's start with Chris. Chris, please introduce yourself. Unmute.
Yes, had to unmute myself first. Hi, all, Chris Offerman, using she, her, hers pronouns, and I currently live downtown Lowell, and I am a member of the coordinating committee.
Great. Please, everybody, you're automatically muted, so when it's your turn to speak, you need to unmute yourself. Amy.
Hi, Amy Baranowski from the Acre, she, her, hers. And
Ryan Hammond, also from the Acre, he, him, his.
All right. Amada.
I am Amada Gregory from Lowell Alliance partnership with JAMA. She, her, and her.
Ashley.
Hi everyone, I'm Ashley, she, her, hers. I live in downtown Lowell.
Let's see, I got Amada already. Carolyn Bays.
Hi, Caroline Bays, she, her, hers, progressive Watertown. I live in Watertown.
Carolyn Snow.
Hi everybody, I am on the coordinating committee and I use she, her pronouns and I live in Centerville.
Darcy.
Hey all, this is Darcy Boyer, she, her, live in Pawtucketville, here with LLAMA, or Lifting Lowellians in Assistance and Mutual Aid, and LEJA, Lowell Education Justice Alliance. Thanks for having me.
Dee, you're next.
Hi, Dee Halzak. I live in the Acre, she, her, hers. I'm on the coordinating committee.
Brother John Grossman.
John Grossman, he, him, his. I live in Pawtucketville.
Joseph Boyle.
Hi, everybody. Joe Boyle, zooming to you from the Lowell Highlands. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a member of the Solidarity Lowell Coordinating Committee. Nice to see you all.
Katie McCann, you're up.
Hi, I'm Katie McCann, she, her, hers. I'm here from City Life Vita Urbana. Thank you so much for having me here, and I live in Boston.
Let's see, we have a person here named Lisa Arnold. Lisa, introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Lisa Arnold. I am from downtown Lowell. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I am a candidate for state representative in the 17th Middlesex District.
Marissa?
Hi everyone, Marissa DuPont, she, her, hers, Pawtucketville, and I am the campaign manager for Lisa Arnold, who is running for state rep in the 17th Middlesex.
Pat on the phone. Pat, can you unmute yourself or do you want me to do it? Okay,
Oh,
Pat,
good.
you're unmuted.
All right, Pat Rondel, she, her, hers. I also live in Pawtucketville, and I am a member of the Housing Committee. Hello, everyone.
Great. Rick?
Hi, I'm Rick Golden from Christian Hill in Lowell, he, him. And I saw my first Lisa Arnold lawn sign on Mill Road, I think in Chelmsford. So I was very happy to see that.
Great. Sue Kim?
Hi, my name is Sue Kim. I live in the Acre, I think it's technically. My pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Okay. Susan, I didn't call on you yet, right? Susan who? Hello, Susan?
She's muted.
Yeah, let me unmute her if I can. Susan, I can't seem to unmute you for some reason. There we. Susan, see if you can unmute yourself.
I'm trying to.
There
You're good.
Is that good? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Susan Houle, she, her, hers. I live in Carney Square in downtown Lowell.
Okay, did I miss anybody? No, we're all good? Okay, welcome everybody. Oh, what? Did I miss somebody? No? Okay. Time to celebrate our victories. Victory number 1, Juneteenth, is now an official Massachusetts holiday. Yay, took them long enough. Victory, Trump regulation to make asylum seekers apply from the country they are in before coming to the United States was struck down by the courts. Safe Communities Act was reported favorably out of committee. Now it needs to pass. So we need to get that done by next week. The Trump administration dropped their proposal to bar international students from studying in the US if all their classes are taught online. And who else has victories to share? Anybody? Oh, surely there must be some. Victories, going once, going twice. We need more victories. If you'd like to join Solidarity Lowell now on Slack, everybody loves Slack. You can do so by contacting myself or Chris. Our emails are on the screen. For those of you who can't see, it's going to be difficult. We just set up the Slack, reset up the Slack platform for Solidarity Lowell because it's getting busy, and the way we had been intercommunicating was a bit cumbersome. So if you'd like to join us on Slack, please let either myself or Chris know. We'll be happy to send you the invitation for that. All right, looks like it's time for subcommittee updates. The Immigrant Rights Subcommittee update is done by
me.
There you go.
That would be mine. Yes, still is, has been for a while now, Immigrant Rights Subcommittee. And the updates are really all kind of theoretical because for obvious reasons, local actions are still on hold. We still have the mailing list that we set up some 3 years ago, and everybody that's on it should feel free to share to that mailing list. If you don't have it, if you've lost it, or if you would like to add it onto it, email me, chris@solidaritylowell.com, or let anybody else in the coordinating committee know, and we can put you onto that list so that we can all immigration rights relevant information share in that place. Like Steve said before, the Safe Communities Act was reported favorably out of committee. Now it has to be passed. I have been participating in several text banking efforts led by Progressive Mass. I know there are some other text banking and phone banking events underway that can be found. If you would like to get on there and can't find it, ask me, I know where to find it. DACA is still in litigation the way I understand it. I'm not following it very closely because I've been focusing mostly on the Safe Communities Act. That was closest to my heart, but I understand that DACA is still being litigated, and I'm getting my information from the National Immigration Law Center. I'm sure there are other sources. If you have them, you can share them here in the chat. You can send them to me, whatever. And the last thing, and this just actually came across, well, it came across my email today. Dee said she had seen it earlier rather, Driving Families Forward, which is the effort to provide driver's licenses to undocumented immigrants. It was, I gotta look this up here, it was part of the police reform bill, but they didn't want to hold up that bill, so they pulled actually that amendment from the police reform bill and added it onto the economic development bond bill, where it is now amendment number 261, and everybody is urged to email their reps that they should become co-sponsors or that they should advocate, vote for this amendment in the economic development bill so that the driver's licenses for undocumented immigrants can move forward, which will make streets safer for everybody, clearly, because if you have a driver's license, then you can also get insurance. And then if you, God forbid, should be involved in an accident, you don't have to do a hit and run, all these good things. So here is some websites that were listed on here that you can go to, or anything else, ask me or ask anybody in the coordinating committee. And that's about it. And soon as, I guess not this year, next year we will have hopefully welcoming week again, which we were part of last year and the year before, but that's for next year to decide. For right now, we're still holding tight. That's all I have. Any questions on this?
No questions? Anybody got a question for Chris?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'll
Thank you,
shut
Chris.
myself up again.
And the Merrimack Valley Interfaith Sanctuary Network, our update from Marissa, I think.
Yes. So hi, everyone. I'm the volunteer coordinator for the Merrimack Valley Interfaith Sanctuary Network for Solidarity Lowell. So currently we have a gentleman from Togo, Marius, who is staying with us in the sanctuary space in Lowell. Well, actually, I'm not sure if he's technically in Lowell right now because there's construction going on at that location, but he unfortunately is having a medical issue and needs assistance. We have agreed to provide him $500 for his living expenses every month, but he needs assistance beyond that. So we especially need donations. You can donate at the link on the screen, or if you go to Merrimack Valley Project and click donate, just make sure you write asylum in the special notes section and the funds will go to him. And if you are interested in helping out with the Sanctuary Network, please shoot me an email at marissa@solidaritylowell.com. That's it.
Thank you, Marissa. Group updates and announcements. Any important information in upcoming events from other groups that you are involved in? Do we have any? Well, should we hear from Sue and Darcy first, and then anybody else, right? Okay. So from the DEI Consortium, Sue Kim. Sue.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. So I'm going to just paste in the chat a form, a brief sign-up form for people who are interested in getting involved. So the DI Consortium is relatively new. The mission, the short version of the mission is dismantling racism, amplifying unheard voices, and leading impactful action for just and equitable Lowell. We're going to be following up on the City Council meeting because, you know, after the racism is a public health crisis motion failed last week, Rodney Elliott's resolution is going up for vote on Tuesday. And so we have a letter that will be going out probably tomorrow, just, you know, laying out why that it's you know, it's kind of a slap in the face to the over 1,500 individuals and organizations. So the committees that we have are basically, you know, it's a relatively new group, right? We have a group on political advocacy, on fiscal agency and fundraising, but I would say several of the big our priorities are one is training and education, right? Substantive anti-racist training and education curriculum, both for the city as well as nonprofits and, you know, education organizations and stuff like that. I work at UMass Lowell and I can tell you that we don't have anything that's useful. Another one is working on the nonprofits themselves. We have a lot of people in nonprofit organizations who are community serving, but you know, they have a lot of work to do themselves, right? You all have heard of the things going, you know, that have been going on about, you know, UTech and Girls Inc. and stuff like that. So the nonprofit sector, as well as educational, as well as the city, you know, has things to work on too, right? And another one, you know, is also getting more progressive candidates of color to run for office, right? So, I mean, I would say, you know, one thing that, you know, this group could really do to help is to, you know, have Lisa Arnold drop out of the race and, you know, put her weight behind Vanna so Nangle doesn't win again. But yeah, so those are some things that people can do in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and where the consortium is, the priorities that the consortium is putting forth.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Sue? No? Okay. From Lama, Darcy.
Hey all, so I'll just give a quick thing on who Llama is. I think most of you know, many of you have given money or given some time, which is awesome, so thank you. We arose out of this crisis knowing that many people were going to fall through the cracks because our services and our government does not care for people well, and knew that this was going to be something that people were going to need to be fed and people were going to need all kinds of services that they weren't going to be able to get. So the last number of months, a lot of our focus has been on getting people food, people who can't come and get it themselves, also paying for medications and other needs, also delivering school lunches. So really responding to immediate needs, but we really want to be looking at what the root causes of all of this is as well, because we know that these things were in place, these inequities were in place prior to this. This just really highlighted them. So Llama definitely plans on continuing on to really take on the racism and all the other things that are contributing to this crisis, capitalism for one. And so one of the things, I think the reason that I'm here is because I know that Solidarity Lowell has been looking at housing. And so we have been starting to look at that, knowing that there's going to be a really awful eviction crisis coming up, and the fact that the moratorium has been extended, while it seems good in the short term, it's just kicking the can down the road, and this is just adding debt on top of debt. And so what's going to happen when the moratorium is lifted? So in the short term, one of the things we're looking at, and I think Katie will probably talk about this, is the Housing Guaranteed Stability, I don't know the full name of it off the top of my tongue, act that's really, that there's a lot of organizing around right now and trying to get people to call their legislators and reach out. But in the long term, we're looking at other things like trying to organize tenant organizations or pods within neighborhoods, not that are tied necessarily to housing or housing complexes, but are that more loosely organized. Looking at doing more direct action in terms of stopping evictions when they're happening, and then looking at more policy issues like inclusionary zoning, rent control when we're finally able to do that once that bill has been passed, which we'll have to fight for as well. And so and also moving into more like bread not bombs type of things, where we're feeding people in parks and not having to deliver food, because we've been kind of learning how to organize in this time of COVID has been a really interesting experience. All the things that we normally do, we haven't been able to do, right? So door knocking was challenging. Opening up churches for childcare and feeding people, we weren't able to do that. So we've really been trying to rethink how we do things. And so we're still kind of struggling with that, but feel like things are getting better in that way. And so we would love, obviously, all of the things that we're talking about need more people. So joining forces, but really also wanting to organize folks who are experiencing it themselves is really a priority for us. So those are some of the things that we're talking about. Our next meeting is next Thursday. The next meeting of the advocacy team is next Thursday at 5 o'clock. You can reach out to me for more information. Ashley and Chris are also involved, and I don't know if either of them have anything to add. I'm going to put the link in to our notes from our last meeting, just so you can see some of the things that we're talking about if you're interested. So love to work with you all on a lot of this. There's a lot to do, as we know, but Lowell is in this really critical and interesting time right now. And I think that this is an important time for us to act and move on so many things, because this is the time to do it. So thank you. And again, I don't know if you have time, but Ashley is very involved in this, and Chris as well. So I don't know if they have anything to add. And obviously Amada, but she has time coming up, it sounds like. So thank you. Any questions?
Actually, Darcy, I have a question. I don't know if it's should be addressed to you or maybe later, but one of the critical things for people facing eviction is lack of legal representation. Is Lama looking at that aspect of it at all? Or?
Well, we've been trying to bring in New England legal aid to a lot of the discussions we've been having, and they were in the last discussion that we had, but that's as far as we have gone. So if anyone has more thoughts on that, that would be other ways that we can do that. It's all welcome. We're all learning as we go.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have questions for Darcy? Seeing none, anybody else have a group update or something you'd like to share, an announcement?
Joe has a question.
It looks like Joe has a question.
Yeah, Steve, Darcy, it's not so much a question as a comment. You talked about joining forces, and yes, I think that's something that we need to, that our group and your group should work together on and should join forces on. I had actually started an affordable housing committee that was very policy focused, you know, looking at stuff that could, city council motions and state and acts in the state legislature and stuff. It wasn't as, you know, action oriented as some of the things you were talking about, but it sounds like you're taking a pretty broad, you know, you're taking a pretty broad approach to that. And, you know, I would certainly be interested in coming in, looking at that policy end.
Yeah, and Joe, I know that you came to that first meeting that we had with the kind of a coalition of groups, and you had a lot of great ideas. I think that we're really kind of taking a two-pronged approach. There are folks who really want to look at policy issues, but then there are others that want to do the on-the-ground organizing, grassroots organizing, and that allows different ways for people to get involved, people who are not necessarily wanting to stand in front of a house when people are getting evicted, you know, but then would like to work for inclusionary zoning or other types of things like that. So knowing that there's a place for all of that is kind of how we're looking at this. And again, we're just getting started on this, and we know that you all have been working on this and have some great ideas. So yeah, so I think that there's a place for us to work together on some of this stuff. So
yeah, in fact, one thing that I would certainly hope to avoid is a sort of duplication of effort and tripping over each other's feet type of situation. I don't, you know, in terms of a Solidarity Lowell group, I don't see us to try a purpose of reinventing the wheel. I think the more the community can be together, the more that we can be working, you know, as partners and stuff, you know, as one, you know, the better off. You know, we should certainly have close coordination. In terms of a Solidarity Lowell Affordable Housing Committee, it would probably be best to have that be the people who are interested in participating in this on the you know, on the policy end. And you know, you and I, let's stay in close contact. You meet Ashley, who, you know, was a crucial part of our committee until, you know, COVID hit, and, you know, our more long-term vision suddenly needed to not be the first thing on the top burner, you know.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for coming tonight.
You're welcome. Thanks. Glad to be here.
Paul, did you have something?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry I'm late. I was on the road. I just wanted to thank the members of Solidarity Lowell who attended the Merrimack Valley house parties on Zoom. We had one in May and two in July, and I want to report back to you that we raised $2,500 with those three parties. Thank you very much. And the other announcement I have is that we're going to have a virtual awards ceremony instead of a dinner and the date is November the 7th, which is a Saturday evening. So I'll have more details and invitation to go out to all of you. It's when we celebrate people who have been active over the past year. John Grossman's one of our honorees in the past, and it's a good night, and we'll try to do it on Zoom this year, November 7th, a Saturday evening. So again, thanks for contributions from everybody who participated.
Thank you, Paul. John Grossman is an honoree in my world every day. So that would be a great event for everybody to attend. Anybody else have an update? John Grossman, do you have an update?
Yeah, Steve and I volunteer with, and several other people, with 350 Mass Greater Lowell group, which is a climate justice organization that is trying to build a grassroots movement for climate justice locally in the Lowell area and also statewide, and we're loosely affiliated with 350.org. One of the things we do is work on state policy. When you're talking about something as big as climate, you need collective action to make it changes. And although we have many crises going on now, climate is another crisis going on that's a little more slower moving, but is extremely serious, and the amount of time to deal with it is running out. So the other thing that's running out is the state legislative session. This week coming up is very possibly the last week of this session, unless they extend it, which everybody goes back and forth on that. So you'll all be getting lots of notices from all the groups that are fighting for things we want to fight for, asking you to make phone calls, and we're going to be among them. Somebody mentioned that the driver's license bill there's an amendment to try to get it in the economic bond bill, which I think is being debated tomorrow. It's also true that the folks looking for a progressive carbon pricing policy that would tax polluters for the carbon they're putting in the air, and if that rebated to people in a progressive manner, and use some of it for renewable energy projects that would be able to deal with the unemployment we got. So there's an amendment to the economic development bill, amendment number 163. So when you're making your emails and calls on driver's license bill, if you're motivated, you could vote for amendment number 163. And later this week, we're hoping that a broad climate bill will come to the floor to deal with a whole time frame and a game plan to address climate. We have one now. It's not nearly fast enough. The bill that could come to the floor would make it a little bit faster, a little bit stronger, and we have amendments that would help. And we'll be putting the details of that out on Facebook in the usual places where hopefully you will see it. So this is a week to be paying attention to all that stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anybody else have an announcement? We're running a little late, but don't let that deter you. Anybody have any announcements?
I do, Steve.
Go ahead, Marissa.
Hi, Marissa, speaking as campaign manager for Lisa Arnold. I'll be really quick. We have 2 phone banks we're looking for folks to help with. There's one on Thursday from 6 to 9 p.m. and then one on Saturday from 1 to 4 p.m. As you know, Progressive Mass and Solidarity Lowell have endorsed Lisa Arnold. So we're looking for anybody who's interested in helping with those phone banks. Just shoot us an email at volunteer@lisaforstaterep.com or email me or message in the chat or whatever. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Marissa. Last call for announcements. Okay, time for the main event. So I watched the housing forum that Lama put on last week, and for me, the best part of that presentation was the testimonials from people who are directly impacted by the housing crisis. And Amada did such a great job in gathering those testimonials. We asked her to come and share some. So Amada, if you could join us now with those testimonials.
Yes, I would like to say, hi, everybody. My name is Amanda Gregory, and I'm working for Lowell Alliance. And I've been working for Lowell Alliance for about a year. And when I started working with family. I'm a family advocate and community outreach. And I started, going on the street and talk to family and talk to also mom that I see with a child in the stroller, because also Lowell Alliance gives free diapers. So I get involved with a lot of family that way. And when COVID-19 came, I have approximately 400 families that are calling me, and I provide them services and resources. By myself, also together with JAMA, when Lowell Alliance partnership with JAMA, we provide also my family with food and free diapers. But at the same time, also they provide a basket card, gift card. My work, even though I'm part-time, but my work is around the clock. Why? Because I care what's happening with the family. There's a lot of undocumented family that do not have no voice. So I advocate for them. I'm a voice for them. Whenever they call me, it doesn't matter at what time. It could be 2 o'clock in the morning. If I could answer, I could answer. If I'm there to support them, I would do so. On Sunday, if they call me just right now, I'm talking in my car because a family called me that need my help. So if I free and I could help the family right away. I support them, and they know that. So the voice, they tell to the friends and the friends, and then they call me because they need services. They need services they will provide. I provide if I cannot provide. If I cannot, say I can't. I give resources. If they don't answer to you, I'm gonna be there, trying to do my best I can. So this is a family, and I collected a lot of testimonies by family. They are a lot of it is documented. A lot of them is not. But also they concern about both of them. They're concerned about losing the apartment. They lost the job already, so the children is home. They do not have any help, no information. What I'm talking about, no information, is that undocumented families sometimes they don't have information, deeply information, because they are afraid to go and ask people. And also because when they go to ask for help, they're asking for papers and documentations, and they're afraid to do so. And if they ask, also they let them wait until they get tired. So, and I'm here is to represent the family, undocumented family, any family that needs. Not only documented, I serve. I saw all diversity. For instance, there's one family that really needed my help. She's a first-time mom, and nobody had tell her anything. She come from I'm not gonna say it, but and she needed help, and she's a lack of English. But I was there when they called me. They say, I had this family. I said, okay, I will take care of it. And sometimes this particular mom do not have any formula to give it to the baby. So she called me, and anything. If JAMA can provide, if it's Sunday, I will take, and provide for them. I'll go and buy the formula and take it to this particular family. She's a first-time mom. She doesn't have any help, any support. So here I am when I come. That's why I'm here and in the car talking to you, because I always constantly on the street, constantly around where the people call me and say, I need help, I need food, I need diapers, I need formula, I need, I'm sick, I have the COVID, I cannot go outside. So I'm here. I'm only one person, but thank God that gave me so strength to help the family. Here are some testimony. I'm going to read 3 testimonies, 2 in Spanish, the 3 in Spanish. There are more, but the 3 in Spanish I'm going to read. And I will read through my phone since I'm in my car and I'm talking through my phone. So I'm going to read it to you. You're going to see how really a lot of documented people, a lot of documented families do not have the support. They don't want to come out because they're scared, they're afraid. If they ask for help, it's prolonged, it's long to help them. So that's why, they're afraid also. Why I had to ask if nobody pay attention to me. So it just like left behind. So I'm going to read to you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to give me the opportunity to come here and advocate for family or laws. And also not Lowell, they're coming also from Lawrence. And a lot of documented families in Lawrence, but I try to help them too, even though I can. But I say, okay, I will help you if I had the resources. I would tell you where to go, and I will help you with the food if I can. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, and I'm gonna read the. This is one of the families say, I am a resident of Lowell. I'm a single mom with 2 children. My concern is I owe rent. In June, I have an operation in my right hand. And in March, I couldn't go to work. But then COVID-19 came, and I didn't have no money already because I have an operation in my right hand. And she said, then I lost my job. I got sick of COVID, the virus. I have my job, but I lost it. And I spoke to my landlord, and I told her that I cannot pay the rent. And she said, well, I had to pay my mortgage. This is a person, and she said, I am undocumented. I do not know what to do. I have 2 children. I do not want the children to be homeless. What can I do, and how can I help? Some of the family, this particular family, I gave her CTI phone number. Let me tell you a little bit. CTI, it's great at helping, but sometimes it's what happens is that they don't give it more information. CTI, when you call, you need to have a link, and that link, when a family, sometimes the family do not speak English as well. They don't know how to read and write, and they cannot use the phone as to go and the link. And when I give it to them, they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Amada, I cannot because I don't know how to read and write." Sometimes it's what happens is that when they call, they don't answer. They had to leave a message, and when the CTI called them back, they gave them the link. And they say, I cannot do it. And they say, well, I'm sorry. That is what happened. The other one is almost the same. They say, I'm a resident of Lowell. I'm a single mom with 3 kids. My concern is the rent, the electricity, the gas, food, clothes for my children to go to school. And I was in the hospital. They admitted me because I have a high blood pressure. I was worried about how I'm going to pay my rent. And she said, please help me. I don't know what to do. I also gave her a CTI. And today I call her and I ask her if she, if she calls CTI and she say yes, I called them 3 times and they haven't answered me. So if that is happening, they're waiting, but the landlord cannot wait. And some of the families, some of the commented families already the landlord, say, get, out of my, get out of my house. I don't want you here. So some of them are homeless already. I just want you to know that. The other one is to say, I'm a single mom working full-time job. I'm sorry, and I don't make a lot of money, and the money that I make is not enough to pay my rent. What can I do, and how can you help me? I also gave her CTI because that's the only one I know, and she called CTI. She's waiting for the respondent. But the thing is that we need another a way to help the family, because if the CTI does not answer, right away, those people cannot wait. The landlord cannot wait, and they could throw them out. Thank you so much for letting me to read the testimony of the family that need help. Not only 3 families, there's a lot of family in Lowell that need a lot of help, and maybe it's without housing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amada.
Any questions?
Oh, anybody have any questions for Amada?
Thank you so much, Amada.
That was very helpful. I know Merrimack Valley Project's in a listening campaign for exactly these kinds of stories. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, we're running a little behind time. Let's hear from Marwa Saeed. Marwa, I hope I got your pronounce your name right, from the Mass Coalition for the Homeless. Marwa.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi, this is Marwa Syed from the Massachusetts Coalition for the Homeless. Thanks for taking the time to have me on the call tonight. I am on a bit of a short timeline, but I hope I can talk pretty quickly. So I am the community organizer and legislative advocate at the Massachusetts Coalition for the Homeless. We're a statewide policy and direct service organization. I do only policy mostly, and during the pandemic, my role has become more multifaceted as we've gained more and more cases because people really need services. So I'm just going to talk quickly about what we're seeing on the ground and talk about what our response is looking like and kind of what we're looking for as we go into the future. So I think, as we've heard from the testimonials and from the people on this call, people, renters, tenants, low-income people, poor people, most of the people in our communities that we speak with are a real big risk of losing their housing or being threatened by landlords about losing their housing, whether that's through a formal court process, which even though we have the eviction moratorium, hasn't really stopped landlords from filing civil cases or trying to get around the rules in other ways. And we're also seeing a really big uptick in intakes into the state shelter system, the family shelter system called emergency assistance, that really worry us because before the pandemic, the shelter system was already overburdened and under-resourced, and now that we're in the pandemic and they've had case after case after case coming in, we feel really worried about what will happen when people truly have nowhere to go, whether that is as people continue to not be able to work, or the $600 pandemic unemployment is not extended, or whether that is after the eviction moratorium, whenever that may be. It's been extended till October. It may be extended further. It really seems uncertain right now. We're seeing a lot of need in the community, and we're feeling like the response, both from the federal government and the state government, has not really been one of urgency or one of scale appropriate to what is actually going on, which I feel like is probably a sentiment most people on this call agree with. So a few things that we're looking at here. We mostly focus on the family shelter system, and then another group called the Massachusetts Housing and Shelter Alliance focuses more on the individual side of homelessness. And these are formal and informal services, so whether that's shelter, whether that is helping people apply for benefits, some of which they don't really know that they're entitled to. We're looking to increase the ability of agencies to help people access resources wherever they may be. So there are kind of two main funding streams right now to help people stay stably housed where they are in their homes. One is called RAFT, Rental Assistance for Families in Transition. And even though families is in the name of that rental assistance program, it's not only for families. The program has been greatly expanded since its inception. And so now that program is for individuals, families, people with disabilities, youth, anyone who really needs to access that program in order to stay stably housed. There are different pots of money for the RAFT program. Our kind of favorite iteration of the RAFT program is what we like to call colloquially upstream RAFT. And all that means is that you are not required to have a court notice in order to access those RAFT funding, those RAFT funds. Whereas in traditional RAFT, you are expected to have some sort of notice to quit or other formal court documents that show that you are being evicted. I think for a lot of reasons, it's not a great idea to make it so that people have to go to court before they can receive any help. It's because, sometimes it's too late. Their name is permanently in the court system. And right now, really no one should be receiving a notice to quit. So if no one is receiving a notice to quit, that would have meant that no one could access RAFT. So we're hoping to keep that program intact. We're hoping to keep traditional RAFT intact. And we're hoping to make sure that it's really being targeted toward the people who need it. Right now, RAFT is for people up to 30% and sometimes 50% of the area median income, which is a pretty significant difference from a similar program called IRMA, which is Emergency Rental Assistance in Massachusetts. That program can be for people who have an area median income of up to 80%. And I know area median income is like a really sketchy term because it's kind of obscure, but I think families, it's kind of the difference between families who are making $30,000 a year and families who are making $75,000 to $80,000 a year. And we're seeing, mostly we see families who are making in that $10,000 to $40,000 a year range being the ones who need access to RAFT in order to remain stably housed. But we are starting to see people who are in the higher earning areas who are starting to need access. So we're hoping to steer them more towards IRMA and not RAFT, so that RAFT funds can be conserved for the people who really need them. The good news is that on Friday, the governor signed a supplementary budget that is preserving all of the housing and homelessness line items, which is big jargon, which basically means that everything that we asked for that is currently funding a lot of homelessness prevention and stabilization is going to continue to receive funding at the same or higher levels than it has. And something that we're really excited about is, since its inception, RAFT has had a cap of $4,000, which basically means that if you are trying to access the RAFT funds anytime in 12 months, whether it's for back rent or for first, last, and security, any sort of expenses that RAFT covers, you can only receive up to $4,000 in those 12 months. As many of us know, in Massachusetts, $4,000 just doesn't go very far. So one of our big advocacy points has been for them to raise the cap to $10,000. And in the supplementary budget language, the cap was raised to $10,000, which is really awesome because that will allow people to actually access the amount of money that they need to remain stably housed and not just have this be a stopgap measure or to have them be completely excluded from accessing RAFT in the first place. Because if the RAFT administrators determine that $4,000 will not actually help a family remain sustainably housed, then they just won't give them the money, which is pretty not great. So those are two programs that we're really focused on and are really steering people towards. And then speaking more in general, just about a long-term goal that we're looking at, we have a larger conversation with a lot of shelter providers and with advocates about reimagining the shelter system and reimagining homelessness stabilization prevention during the pandemic and after the pandemic. Our systems failed us pretty intensely and have been failing us pretty intensely, and the pandemic has only exacerbated those conditions. And it's unfortunate that this is happening, but we're also trying to mold this into an opportunity to get people to take us seriously about what these systems have been doing to people and what it actually looks like for people on the ground. We held a pretty big legislative briefing a couple of weeks ago to have families who are currently experiencing homelessness, who have experienced homelessness, actually just talk to legislators about what their experiences are like. This is because we found that there was a real critical lack of understanding at the legislature level about what those families go through. And so we just want to make sure that their experiences are actually being incorporated into whatever new system is being imagined. So those are just a few of our basic policy updates and trends and things that we're really focusing on right now to make sure, or to try to make sure that the fallout from what's going on right now isn't as bad as it could be, but we are anticipating that the next few months to a year will be pretty intense in this regard. Sorry, that was very, very fast, but if people have questions, please let me know, and I can give Chris my contact information. You can definitely reach out to me with any questions or concerns.
Thank you, Mara.
Sure.
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
It's about area median income. Can you refresh my memory? Is that done by city and town, or is that done by a regional area?
That's done. So yeah, it's very flawed. It's done by a regional area. So our area median income actually incorporates parts of New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's not as worrisome to me. Does it incorporate Lexington and Concord and Westford and?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It really doesn't do justice to people. Even within, because like people in Boston who live in Roxbury or Dorchester, and I'm just using Boston as an example because that's where I live, are being kind of held to the same average as people who live in like Wellesley and things like that. Yeah, it's pretty messed up.
Thank you.
Yep, of course.
Anyone else have questions for Mara?
Yes, I didn't get the name of the second funding organization. You said one was called RAFT, and what was the other one? IRMA?
The other one is called IRMA, ERMA, Emergency Rental Assistance. I believe MA stands for Mass. I'm sorry, we use so many acronyms that sometimes what they stand for is
There's a website for the Mass Coalition that we can get more details?
Yep, it's mahomeless.org.
Great, thank you.
Yep, and I can send out some fact sheets on Monday morning to Chris if that is helpful.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, definitely. Send me anything you have, and I can post it to the group, send it to our mailing list, whatever is the appropriate thing. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, definitely will. And I can invite everyone on this call as well to our Housing and Benefits Committee meeting that we're holding next Friday, which is a monthly coalition meeting of advocates, providers, and people with direct experience, where we kind of parse through these policy and direct experience connections more thoroughly, if that sounds interesting to anyone.
I just realized, of course, you can't see who is speaking. So the one that said, send me the information, that was me, Chris.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit.
I just realized that, of course, you can't see who is speaking since you're on the phone. So
yes.
when I just said, send me the information, it's me, Chris. We've been emailing back and forth. So keep sending.
I figured. Yeah, I figured. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm partly in the car.
No, we should have thought of that, and everybody should say, I am so-and-so, so you know who's talking.
I appreciate it.
Anyone else for Marwa? Okay, thank you very much, Marwa. Coming up next.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Sure. Katie McCann from City Life Vida Urbana. Katie.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Katie McCann, and I'm a community organizer at City Life Vida Urbana, a grassroots community organization based in Boston that's focused on housing justice. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak here. Some of you might have heard me speak a little bit on at Llama's board recently, so thank you also to Llama and Darcy for inviting me to that. And so City Life is a grassroots community organization that combines organizing to create public pressure with legal defense in partnership with our legal partners in order to win long-term solutions to create housing stability. So that includes fighting for legislation, that includes organizing tenant associations, that includes legal defense and direct action around eviction cases, and a lot of other aspects of public pressure. And so as you all know, Massachusetts already had a housing and displacement crisis before COVID-19, and the pandemic has made things much worse. And up to 20,000 eviction cases are expected immediately after the current moratorium ends. I have a number of links that I'll share in the chat afterwards, but we recently, in partnership with some researchers at MIT, had a report that came out that is called Evictions in Boston, the Disproportionate Effects of Forced Moves on Communities of Color, that has a lot of research that really documents the eviction crisis in communities of color in Massachusetts prior to COVID, as well as some additional research on what's currently happening. So right now, as you all are probably familiar, the eviction moratorium has been extended by 2 months by the governor, which we're glad that the governor listened to the voices of renters, homeowners, and advocates to create this brief extension, but we know that's definitely not enough. And so many people are going to be facing eviction and displacement or foreclosure after that ends. And that's also likely going to be when the second surge of COVID-19 is occurring. So right now we're really focused on organizing to pass the Guaranteed Housing Stability Bill, which provides really strong protections for tenants, homeowners, and small landlords for a year after the state of emergency is lifted. So really recognizing that protections are needed during the pandemic, and it's going to be needed after the pandemic during the recovery as well. So that legislation, we are really trying to do a big push to get that passed in the next week. And that is, so there are I'm gonna put a link in the chat to housingguarantee.org. That website has a way that you can automatically email your state representative and state senator just by entering your name and address, and you can customize it if you want, or you don't have to. You can also submit testimony through that website to the Housing Committee at the Massachusetts State House in support of the Guaranteed Housing Stability Bill, and that bill number is H4878 and S2831, and I'll put all that information in the chat so you don't need to write any of that down. In addition to trying to get the legislation itself passed, this legislation is now also an amendment to the Economic Development Bill. It's amendment number 439, and so we're also urging people to call their legislators and ask them to co-sponsor that amendment, as well as amendment number 66, which is the Tenant Protection Act, which we've been fighting for over a year now, which would lift the ban on rent control and allow all cities and towns in Massachusetts to create their own laws for protections for tenants and homeowners, including rent control, as well as just cause eviction laws and other tenant and homeowner protections from displacement. And additionally, another amendment, number 34, which is the local option for transfer fee bill that requires a transfer fee on sales of very expensive properties, and that the funds from that tax would go to fund affordable housing in Massachusetts. And so just briefly what the Guaranteed Housing Stability Act includes, it protects tenants who are unable to pay rent due to a direct or indirect impact of COVID against eviction for non-payment for payments missed between March 10th of 2020 through 12 months after the state of emergency. And so that can be whether somebody lost their job or lost hours or had any other financial impact that is related to COVID. It also stops no cause or default evictions through so that's sort of a piece of the Tenant Protection Act also includes. It also stops increases through 12 months after the state of emergency, and for damaged credit and negative court records. And for homeowners, extend the ban on foreclosures in most owner-occupied properties. It extends the right to mortgage deferment with payments put at the end of the loan through 12 months after the state of emergency. and it ensures that borrowers cannot be charged penalties for missed payments during the forbearance. And it also stabilizes small landlords by expanding the right to mortgage defense to landlords who own up to 15 rental units. So that's not just owner-occupant landlords, but other small landlords as well. Would benefit from this. It establishes a COVID-19 Housing Stability and Recovery Fund to assist property owners who lost rental income or missed mortgage payments due to the pandemic, and it ensures that working class owners and owner-occupant nonprofit scale landlords have first priority in receiving support from the fund, and creates an oversight board with representation from communities hardest hit by the pandemic and the housing crisis, to ensure that those funds are really going to homeowners and landlords who need the funds the most, as well as to small nonprofits like community development corporations or free land trusts who are providing permanently affordable housing in the community. And so, yeah, so housingguarantee.org is the place that has all of the steps for ways that you can take action. The testimony is due at Tuesday at noon, so then it's written testimony. They're not having a live hearing for this bill. So submitting written testimony, even if it's brief, just expressing your support, or if you want to share your story or stories of those you work with, that's also really important too. And yeah, and we're continuing to take action at this time in ways that are COVID safe. We had a big rally at the State House this past week, along with Lynn United for Change in Springfield No One Leaves. And that also included a Zoom component. And we've been having several car caravan rallies through neighborhoods where tenant associations have had socially distant standouts, and lots of other members have joined through Zoom and shared their stories. And so we're definitely going to continue to be building that pressure. And if any of you in Lowell would be interested in organizing some kind of rally that was like, you know, car caravan and Zoom, we could also support with that. We're definitely planning to continue to put a lot of pressure, even if this legislation doesn't pass this week. There's still a possibility of the legislature either extending the session or deciding to come back sooner. So there are still a lot more steps that we can be continuing to take, and we're going to be continuing to organize and also be prepared to organize in mass eviction defense if we are not able to win strong legislation. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and I will also share my email along with a bunch of the resources that I mentioned in the chat.
Great, thank you. So I have a couple of questions, and we need to really be aware of the time here. My first question is, what kind of abilities do local municipalities have in addressing a case of widespread evictions? What can local municipalities do?
Unfortunately, their local municipalities do not have a lot of power relating to housing laws. The 1994 ban on rent control took away the rights of most cities and towns, most of the rights that cities and towns had to create that legislation. Prior to 1994, Boston, Cambridge, and Brookline were the only places in Massachusetts with rent control, and now rent control, just cause eviction, many other forms of tenant and homeowner protections are banned in a statewide ban, and the only way for cities to try to pass housing legislation on any area that is banned is through a home rule petition. And so, and Boston tried to do that with a just cause eviction protection in 2018. And while it passed in the city council, it unfortunately lost in the state house. So that's a big part of why we're pushing for the Tenant Protection Act now as an amendment to the Economic Development Bill, because we really, we really know that cities and towns where the displacement crisis is impacting the most need to have the ability to create greater protections for people at risk of displacement. And I know that right now, city and town councils can pass, sorry, I'm forgetting the word, like a resolution in support of this legislation. That that is one way to express support. It obviously isn't anything binding, but that does indicate support, and that is important. And there are some things like transfer taxes. I know Boston recently enacted a transfer tax on sales over 2 million, and those funds go to affordable housing. So there are things like that, but unfortunately, a lot of most of the things that cities and towns could do, we really need to pass the Tenant Protection Act in order for those to be able to be done.
Okay, and briefly, and without giving away too much, what does mass eviction defense look like?
So it can look like a lot of different things, and we so in our model, we describe it as the sword, the shield, and the offer. And so the sword is public pressure, which usually begins with a public letter where tenants or homeowners would write a letter to their landlord or bank about their case and about what was happening, and they would cease about what their demands are, whether they're asking the landlord or bank to negotiate with them or to agree to demands of the tenant association or something like that. That's often a first step, and that's CC'd to public officials. So that's really the first step of public pressure. Then many different types of protests that we have are also part of really increasing that public pressure, and that then that can also include civil disobedience, can include eviction blockades, which City Life did during the foreclosure crisis. It's been a while since we've done eviction blockades, but those are definitely a very powerful tool. But there's a lot of organizing that leads up before that point, and a lot of both public pressure combined with legal defense. We work closely with our legal partners at Greater Boston Legal Services, the Harvard Legal Aid Bureau, Harvard Legal Services Center, Mass Law Reform Institute, and so we work really closely on our strategy of public pressure and legal defense together. And so and that's really important, because individual legal defense, while that's definitely important as well, what we need, especially right now, but also before, is legal defense that that is on a mass level. And so combining organizing and legal defense is how we're able to win these longer term solutions, whether that's legislation, whether that's pressuring a large corporate landlord to sell a building to a nonprofit for it to remain permanently affordable to the current residents and any future residents who live there, or other things like that.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Paul.
I have a question. If you had an enlightened city council and an enlightened mayor, are there things that they could do to incentivize private development at an increase in affordable units? Are there, does the local, this is like the local question again another way. I'm thinking of abandoned cities around that developers have their eyes on, but not every developer will be doing maximum for the community benefit. Is there a way that local government has power in those situations?
I believe they do. And I think that yeah, that's really important for the local government to push for, and also yeah, push for there to be as much affordable housing as possible, and also especially to make sure that that affordable housing is truly affordable, because sometimes developers will designate housing as affordable and get some type of benefit from that, but they often will designate it at a very high percentage of the area median income that's often not accessible to local residents, especially in areas like Marwa spoke about where the area median income is really not reflective of the local city or neighborhood income. Oftentimes, yeah, so it's really important to push for truly affordable housing and more of it, but also we need really widespread protections, because we know that we can't win affordable housing on a large enough scale compared to the protections that we need to make sure that all renters and homeowners have.
Thank you.
Questions? All right, well, thank you very much. And coming up next, yes, more speakers. Carolyn Bays from Progressive Mass. Carolyn, you still with us?
Yes, I'm right here.
Thank you.
I'm Caroline Bays. I'm on the Issues Committee with Progressive Mass, and I specialize in housing. I actually am also a town councilor here in Watertown. And I was going to talk a little bit, but do you mind if I detour and answer some of the questions you just asked? Because I've been working on housing issues for the last 2.5 years here in Watertown as a town councilor. So there are some things we can do, although there's some things the city can do, but a lot of times I feel like my hands are tied. I don't know what Lowell's inclusionary zoning is. When new developments are made, the town can require that a certain percentage of the units are deemed to be, for affordable housing. They can also require that it be at certain set points of that level that they were talking about in terms of the area median income. It can be 80%, it can be 65%. They can, so I would look at your municipality's inclusionary zoning if they have it. They should. The other thing that we're doing right now immediately is the emergency rental, an emergency rental assistance program. Look to see if Lowell or whatever other municipalities you live in are doing an emergency rental assistance program. We're using our Watertown Housing Partnership money to fund it, and we're getting an outside help to help run it. If anyone has any questions about that, please let me know, and I can forward you to someone who's an expert on running these programs. The one thing that we've discovered, though, in trying to fund affordable housing and get more affordable housing in Watertown is that we don't have enough money. And that brings me to what I was going to talk about, which is the bills that are in the State House. The main thing we need is money to fund affordable housing. And there's several different ways you can get that money, but most of it's through taxes. So, or through the transfer fee that she was talking about. Yes, Boston did pass a transfer fee, but it cannot, municipalities are not allowed to just pass transfer fees. The only municipalities who got it had to file a home rule petition. It's a long process. You don't necessarily get it. There have been several bills trying to allow municipalities to pass transfer fees themselves. That would allow municipalities to pass basically they would get a tax whenever real estate transferred from one hand to another. So like recently we just had a $350 million sale of a huge parcel of land, and we could have had between 0.5% and 2%. If we'd had a transfer fee, we could have gotten between 0.5% and 2%. I figured out that it would take us 20 years to get that, to get the amount of money that we could have gotten in that one sale. Our CPA would have taken 20 years to fund that same amount.
Wow.
We could have gotten, yeah. So these transfer fees could be really, really valuable for municipalities, especially ones like Watertown, where the rate of real estate is so high. Those bills, there were several of them. There's a Fernandez and there was one by Connolly. Most of them are dead. They've already been sent to study or not reported out this session. I've heard that the last remaining one is Connolly's, and I don't think it's going to be reported out. But we need to bring those back, and we need to allow municipalities to do this as a straight up vote, as opposed to having to file a home rule petition, which is very, very cumbersome. So those are some of the things that municipalities can do. I would also look at your CPC funds. There's all kinds of funds. In terms of your municipalities, go and look and see what the funds are, where they're allocated. And I would talk to whoever specializes in housing and has been helping them in your community, and has been helping people find housing in your community, because they know better than anybody else. It's been invaluable for us to talk to those people about what we need to do in our own municipality, because situations are very different in different municipalities. So getting on to what's also been proposed this year, a lot of it has kind of died or just been ignored because of the COVID stuff. So there was some late file rent control bills that are, I think, pretty much gone. And there's also this deeds excise. It's another fundraising mechanism. It's not a bill, but they're trying to get in the budget a mechanism to also increase the deeds excise tax. This would actually raise tons of money for affordable housing. It's actually better than the transfer fee, because every single piece of property that's transferred, you have to pay a deeds excise tax. They double the deeds excise tax and then split that money between there's two different pockets between climate change and affordable housing. And the climate change groups and the affordable housing groups have gotten together and said, we're good with that. They tried to kind of set us apart against each other, but no, we're good with that. And it's because the transfer fee is by municipality, it's going to raise less money, because not all the municipalities are going to do it. But the deeds excise would just be across the board, and every municipality would get the money from their transferred from the transfer property from that deeds excise tax. So that is not a bill. That's just in the that's just going to be in the budget, the way the budget. So we're still kind of looking to see what's going to happen. I'm not sure it's going to go through this time, especially because of the COVID stuff. But we're hoping for the future. The other thing is that a lot of the bills that didn't go through have been proposed. Katie, was that her name? Talked about the economic development bill that's coming up, and there's a whole bunch of housing bills or housing amendments that they're hoping to get into that bill. There's a Boston inclusionary zoning bill that would just basically codify Boston's zoning code and allows for future rate adjustments and linkage fees. So there's also Connolly has the local option for a fee. that would be applied to certain real estate transaction he filed as an amendment to that bill. There, and along with enabling local options for tenant protections, which basically would allow municipalities to pass rent stabilizing laws. There's a tenant right to counsel pilot, which would allow tenants who are being evicted the right to have a lawyer, because one of the problems is tenants have no ability to really defend themselves adequately in the courtroom. There's also the tenant right to purchase, which guarantees the right of first refusal for tenants when a large building is about to be put up for sale or foreclosed on. There's also public housing support, which allows for more financing opportunities for local housing authorities and prioritizes affordable housing usage for disposition of surplus state-owned land. And then there's the Homes Act, which is an eviction ceiling, which really should be passed. It's horrible. When you get evicted, that eviction follows you everywhere. And it doesn't matter whether that eviction was your fault or you had, I mean, there are people who were evicted when they were kids who have these evictions following them. So we really need to seal these evictions, and that's actually, I should have mentioned that beforehand because we tried to get that passed before. We really need to pass that. Then that's all of those were amendments that are going to be put on with the economic development planning. So that's what I have for you guys. Any questions?
Questions for Carolyn?
Not a question, but thank you. That was amazing. All of these speakers have been incredible. This is so informative.
Carolyn, I have the feeling that as this crisis progresses here in Lowell, we'll probably have questions for you. So I'm sure that sometime in the future, we're going to get back to you.
Sure. Love to answer them.
Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for what you do. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. We are running a little late, so let me just ask is to discuss our next meeting in August. Socially distance outside picnic or stick to Zoom. Shall we have a meeting in August to discuss this now, or how do people feel about it? Go.
One thing though, instead of a picnic which we did in July, also we're seeking just anyway, I know that as well too, and just to a sort of everything on staff and maybe has a kid, right?
We could either have a picnic or outing. If we're gonna meet each other as we get closer to the final election.
We say this is better.
Well, it's like determined, and you just got those.
Good idea, Amy.
So
About the time.
Yeah, we don't have people here. We need to meet that person at this moment. So let's say online or team online to it.
Let's see if offline on our Facebook page. There's the stream. You can now join us on site early. There's the solidarity.com website. And in all manner of ways to touch with Solidarity. Here we go.